say, before Jake presents, about pre-seed funding. So the Entrepreneurship Center has a fund called the Pre-Seed Fund that is donated into or contributed to by a lot of our alumni. And this is to help students who have an idea for a business. So how many of you have the next great idea for a business, or you have something that you're already doing like as a side hustle? Okay, cool. So the Pre-Seed Fund is open to any student. When you apply, you're applying for a maximum of $2,500 per student per semester. So if you're a freshman, you could apply all 8, well, I guess 7 now semesters that you're here. And then if you have a business partnership, you would be eligible for more. So if you and a friend are both doing a venture together, you qualify for $5,000. But I will say your business partner does have to have an active role. It can't be like, oh, I'll put my roommate's name down and you'll get $5,000. That's not how that works. So your funding can be used for any venture development or creating or reaching milestones. So these are things like securing intellectual property, licensing agreements, prototype development, product validation, sales platform costs like Shopify, Etsy, etc., equipment, supplies, and more. So applications for pre-seed funding open next week on February 1st, and they're open all month through February 28th. And then in early March, a committee will get together, look at all of the applications, and then decide the winners for this semester. Last semester we awarded 7 students with funding. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that application should actually look like. So you should submit a Word document or a PDF application and give a background of what your venture would be, as well as what the progress is thus far. Ideally, it's something that you have vetted in some way. So it's not like, I just thought of this 5 seconds ago, we'll see if it goes somewhere. But ideally, it's something where you've already had customers in the past and you're wanting to grow it. So you know people already want it. Have you guys talked about market research at all yet? Okay. So if you've done a little bit of market research into your product or your venture concept, that would increase your chances of receiving funding. So you need to put what your requested amount is and how that full amount would be used. It is very important that you include a budget. If you don't include a budget, you will not be considered. So you don't have to find a way to use all $2,500. You could only be requesting $500, and that's totally fine. But we just want to see how you would actually be using the money that you are requesting. And then a timeline of when the funds would be used. We won't consider anything that won't be used within the next 6 months. So if this is something of like, well, I want to start this when I graduate, unless you're graduating this semester, that's probably not going to fly. And then what your anticipated outcomes are. So how would this money help you? Is it going to help you reach more customers? Is it going to help you develop a prototype? Is it going to help you secure that intellectual property, file for a patent, etc.? And then importantly, pre-seed funds cannot be for expenses that you have already incurred. So we're not going to give you money for something that you bought at Christmas or on Black Friday. It has to be something that you have not purchased yet. So this is an important part of how you would get the money. So if you are awarded the money, you would purchase your items or your services, you would submit your receipts to me, and then we would reimburse this to your e-bill account. So we can't just write you a check because of IRS regulations. It has to go through as a scholarship. But if you have already paid your e-bill, then you would get the money back from Ball State as a refund from your tuition. But if you have unpaid parking tickets, if you haven't paid your e-bill, they would just subtract that amount out of whatever your balance is. So that's just something to keep in mind. Ultimately, you're still paying less, I guess. Does anybody have any questions about that process yet? Perfect. Yeah.
So if you were going to use the money for ads, like ads go on a day-by-day basis, how would you pay for that? Because you pay on a daily basis.
So if there was like, okay, I want to do these, I want to do Facebook ads or something like that for this month. Ideally, you would submit something at the end of like, okay, for 30 days it was $50. Then you would just submit that receipt at the end, or like that invoice, I guess, that they would send you. But it would be something that you put your credit card information in for, and then once you get the receipt from it of like, okay, I did 30 days worth of ads, you submit that to us and we would reimburse you. Does that make sense? Okay, sure. Any other questions so far? Great. Okay, so here are some examples of what people have done in the past. So we, up here at the top, we have one student who created Purpose Pod coffee. So instead of those disposable K-cups for Keurigs, he created reusable ones. So this was his prototype development, and then he sold them. Up here, Anaya has a bakery, and so she submitted for equipment. So we purchased her a KitchenAid mixer for her to be able to make larger batches than just the hand mixer that she had when she was in college. This one is for a vertical greenhouse, and so this student was able to create this prototype and then be able to take on more customers because he wasn't using as much square footage within the greenhouse that he had. This student also created a prototype of a board game that he wanted to be able to sell, and so he was able to get some additional market research because then people were able to actually play the game instead of trying to conceptualize in their mind what the game would be. This student did subscription supplement boxes for Relixer supplements. So we paid for the boxes, the shipping material, the things that actually went inside the boxes, as well as his Shopify account. And then this student had floor plans. This was one of our senior students who his business idea for E-Day was he wanted to do tiny home rentals made out of shipping containers. And so he had an architect create these floor plans, and we paid for those rendering fees. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with pre-seed funding. So you can scan this QR code. It'll give you more information about pre-seed fund. There's video about how it was created, etc. You can email all of your applications to entrepreneur@bsu.edu. That is also on that website. And if you have any questions, you can email me. Again, my name is Marie Thompson. And my email address is mathompson3@bsu.edu. Make sure you include the 3, or else it goes to no one. Okay. Are there any questions before we move on? Cool. I will be back at the end of February and remind all of you guys to get your applications in if you are interested. You're also welcome to stop by my office if you want to brainstorm any of this stuff. I'm in the Whittinger Business Building, office 207. I'm happy to talk to any of you. You can also email me as well, and we can set up a time. All right. So next, I'm happy to introduce Jake Timberlake, who will be our guest speaker for today.
Hello, everyone. Good to finally be back here. I used to sit in these seats just like you, listening to guest speakers, and I know it's boring. I know it's not super exciting, but let me tell you, if I could get my parking tickets paid off that I still owe at Ball State through this fund, I absolutely would. So I'd take advantage of that. But more importantly, I want to kind of get into my intro and what I've kind of done over the last couple years. I graduated in 2019 from Ball State, and now I have 27 years old. I have created 2 businesses along with being a lead account executive at Securely. So kind of giving a breakdown of the timeline is I wasn't successful as a student in high school. I got a 2.2 GPA, not really doing well. I went to Carmel High School, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with, and you're a little fish in a big pond, and I'm sure some of you feel the same way. And I just want to let you know you're not alone. I felt alone for a long time, thinking that I was the only one that was going to see my success through, and that's not true. It's some of the closest people that are around you that are really going to make you successful and propel you to where you want to be. So learning to love to fail, and I'm sure some of you heard this from Gary Vaynerchuk, and what that means is you are going to fail. You're going to get F's on tests. You're not going to pass some of these classes that you think are so hard, but that's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to realize that I'm not the best at everything. I'm not the best at everything, and I'm still learning. And it just takes the time to investing in yourself. Not investing into more time into drinking alcohol, looking at social media, looking at TikToks, and I get it. It's great. But at what point are we going to come to a realization that we got to start using the knowledge that we have in front of us to really propel ourselves forward? So I wanted to kind of go over just like my personal life, and I'm not just some guy who sits behind a desk. I'm wearing this outfit today. This is what I use to go to talk to superintendents with. I'm an account executive at Securely. What we do is stop child suicide and cyberbullying. I'm sure some of you have dealt with it based on the number of people that are in this room have been directly affected by cyberbullying and child suicide. Directly, maybe not directly for you, but someone close to you has. And that was the mission when I first went to Securely. I was a contract employee as a BDR, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did recruiting before, getting paid $40,000 a year, which was nothing. And if you break it down, that was less than $15 an hour, living in Charlotte, North Carolina, about 4 states away from my parents. So what did I decide to do? I hated recruiting, and I had to do something about it. The last 2 months of my recruiting gig, all I did for the last 4 hours of my workday, after working an 8-hour day, was find another job, something that I liked. And thank God, Andrew, who is the recruiter over at Securely, found me and took a chance. Didn't know anything about child suicide or cyberbullying, didn't even know it was a huge prevalent issue, until I really dove deep and got an understanding on how bad kids are to each other. And I'm sure some of you have been a part of that, where you have gotten either bullied or bullied someone else, either inadvertently through a subtweet or some comment on Instagram. Somebody you probably know has done it. And that's what I'm here for specifically K through 12 schools, is to stop cyberbullying and child suicide. And what we use is artificial intelligence and sentiment analysis. Now, those are just big words, but what does that mean holistically? Right now, we're able to take sentiment in sentences, depending upon if it's today is my last day, or I'm going to end it all today. Keywords that wouldn't be any word of suicide or kill, we're able to pick up and inform the guidance counselor to be able to have an immediate one-on-one conversation. Right now, I personally have stopped 15 suicides in my school alone that I've closed. So I can see that I'm making a major impact. But where am I getting at with this? It's really understanding the mission of what you want to be in your job. You don't want to just take the first route. Sure, it's going to be a recruiting gig. Sure, it's going to be a customer service job. I get that. I do. But it's what's the benefit out of you? Do you like the mission? Do you like your boss? Is he mentoring you? Are these some of the things that you want to be doing in the future and maybe have your boss's position? And if none of those questions are coming back with an answer of yes, then you should really reevaluate where you are currently, whether it's your major that you're concerned about and you're not so sure if you want to do it. Make a change. You got time. You're still in school. I switched my major twice, and I finally realized that I really wanted to start my own business. And I get it. It takes so much longer than you think to really come to a realization of this is what I want to do. And it comes down to fear. And fear is a good thing to really shoot yourself forward and realize that you're better than who you think you are. So being a student for life, and what do I mean by this is I'm sure a lot of us think we know a lot of things about very specific subjects. But the best idea that I can give you is if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to know a little about a lot. And what I mean by that is understanding business financials. How do I build an LLC? How do I even create one? What is an employer identification number so I'm able to expense any sort of expenses that I want to do? This project that they have you guys doing where you're able to get money back and it's going to go back to your eval, That was nothing like what we had today, trying to incentivize you guys. You're getting paid to create an idea. And if you don't think that's an amazing idea, then you should reconsider. Because we all have great ideas. It really just comes down to where you want to put your focus at. Whether that's marketing for a dental practice or wanting to create a chiropractic marketing agency that specifically targets chiropractic work and marketing for them. These are some of the ideas that I came up with. And I finally landed on my business partner of mine and I are going to completely disrupt the candle industry. I can't go into a lot of details, but we have just gotten the prototype to be able to extinguish candles and extend the longevity of all candles inside the United States. I wish I could have brought a prototype here, but you guys will see it soon. Now, why should you? Now, this kid might look a little bit different at a Michigan football game, but this was me 10 years ago. And I'm sure you all have had the same question, where am I going to be in 10 years? 10 years ago, I was a sophomore in high school. A sophomore. I don't know where some of you were 10 years ago, maybe in middle school or in elementary school, but I didn't have big ideas about where I wanted to go. I was enjoying going to football games and enjoying my life. But now is the time we got to start waking up. We're done with high school. We're done with realizing that I need to just start tomorrow. And tomorrow's never the answer. You have no reason not to get onto HubSpot and just create your own personal marketing and doing it yourself. You have a brand in front of you right now. It's all of you in creating something that you care about. Who cares what your next door neighbor says if they don't believe in you? Who cares? You got yourself. And I'm sure other of you have a really good internal circle, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, of who can really help you elevate your game. Now, more importantly, 5 years from now, I'm 27 and I'm just starting out really realizing that I'm going to dip my foot into entrepreneurship. I'm probably not going to be at Securely much longer. But what are the takeaways from that, being at Securely for 3 years? Sure, I've gotten promoted 3 times. Sure, it's been a great venture and I've been able to speak in front of superintendents and I never thought I could do that before. And now I'm here speaking at a guest speaker series. And it's just amazing to realize how far you can come. And you won't realize that until you're alone and you don't have Mug Club anymore. And you're not going to Friday nights to Brothers Bar and Grill and staying up till 3 a.m. I used to be a red shirt at Brothers. I understand. I used to stay up till 3 or 4 a.m. But those days are gonna come quick and fast. You all saw my graduation picture. It unfortunately is one of the harsh realities we gotta live with, is your biggest investment is you. It's not investing into your 401k or figuring out a quick crypto pump, which I missed out on, unfortunately, but knowing how to invest in yourself. Do I want to do LinkedIn learning classes and try to understand Google administration? What is Salesforce and how does a CRM really impact a business? These are some of the things you really should start learning about, and these technical knowledge skills if you want to get in some sort of a startup company, and I assume most of you do. Have any of you worked with a startup company before? Perfect. So, some of the things you want to keep in mind, especially when working at a startup company, is it will get uneasy. There's going to be some days your boss won't really contact you for a week on end, and he expects you to hit these deadlines. Sure, I work remote most days, and I got my sweatpants on, and I'm on my ultra-wide monitors making calls, but I'm the only one that shows up. It's not anyone else. It's not my business partner, Justin, or my great girlfriend, Audrey. No one shows up but you. These remote jobs aren't easy. It's not just some walk in the park. I'm talking about child suicide and cyberbullying with superintendents of Austin School District, Chicago Public Schools. Very serious events that have happened inside these schools where kids have died about these things. And it's not easy for me to just sit back and then maybe go to the gym and just think about this. But it's the mission behind it that you got to think about. Now, I know a lot of you won't be able to find a stellar just selling cyber bullying and child suicide software to schools, but it's what the mission is that you care about. It might be that you go just sell boats down in Florida. That's what I want to do at the end of all this, is just be a yacht salesman. Is that a reality? Probably not. And these are really the things you got to start thinking about 5 years from now, is the steps that I'm going to make every day. my daily affirmations of how I got to wake up, I got to go to the gym, I got to eat healthy. Maybe I should stop drinking 6 days a week like me during in college. But where do I want to go in the next couple of years to really elevate my game? And it really is dependent on you. There's going to be no one else there. As much as your professors keep telling you these things and to apply for them, unfortunately, a lot of us are going to let ourselves down. It's not anyone else that's going to be disappointed in yourselves, but you. Now, what's your why? My dad was 18, and he was at Jackson, Michigan. And unfortunately, my grandpa was a full-blown alcoholic and was not present in my dad's life. But unfortunately, his mother, give me 1 second. My grandmother and my step-grandfather both died in a car accident when my dad was 18. Never met him, never knew him. I don't have any bad will about them, but I wouldn't know what that's ever like. Had no one. Moved in with my great aunt Zelma and Nick, and they kicked him out in 6 months. They couldn't keep him. Couldn't keep him. They had my uncle and sister there, and the house was full. Jackson, Michigan isn't anything to write home about. It's about as good as Muncie. Think about living somewhere hard with 6 people in a house in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house. Now, he had an amazing opportunity to go work at this place called Elro Steel. Very small steel distribution company out of Jackson, Michigan. And this great guy, Al Glick, who was the owner of Elro Steel, who died 3 years ago, gave my dad a chance. Barely got a GED from Jackson, Michigan, maybe a 2.8 GPA. Took a chance on him. Didn't know anything about him, but why not? 48 years later, my dad's an executive vice president there after being an administrative assistant. Now that's my why. It should be always impressing your parents or your mentors. Those are the only people who have taught you anything and what you've known. My dad is the only person who has gone out of his way to help me with not only my entrepreneurial ventures, but understanding life can get hard. There always won't be people there picking you up. My dad didn't pick me up when I was making $38,000 a year at that recruiting job. It's not easy. I'm sure you all know making $14, $13 an hour is not easy. But what is worse is anybody enabling you either financially or some sort of emotional level thinking that it's okay. And this goes back to the fear conversation, is learning to struggle and fail a little bit. It's going to be hard. Some of you are going to have very hard jobs that are not going to pay as well, and you won't be able to go out to Brothers Bar and Grill. You won't be able to go downtown to the Rathskeller in Indianapolis. You won't be able to do these things. And you're going to really have to start figuring out, where do I want to go? And I just want to make sure you guys know that now is the time. You're here hearing me talk about this, and I was 5 years ago sitting in your seat listening to the same, probably bozo, talking to you about the same thing. The question is when are you going to start caring about yourself and your wants? Not because someone else told you we should go drink and that's something that they want to do, and then they're peer pressuring you to thinking this is something we should do every week, is just go to Mug Club and go out on the weekends and spend all of our money. It really needs to start with yourself and investing where you want to be and where you want to grow to. Any questions?
What made you want to pivot to starting your own business?
Yeah, I think it got to a point. So at Securely, I can give you guys a little bit of an understanding. We were in the pre-phase of a venture capital buyout. And what does that mean? We were a private company before, and we had our 2 CEOs out of Sacramento sold the company to a venture capital firm, which some of you might do, which congratulations, future congratulations to you. But what does that mean when you get bought out by a venture capital firm and you have stock options inside of there like I had? Well, first of all, you get a nice paycheck with all your stocks that are getting bought out because they buy 100% of the company. But furthermore, the complete hierarchy of leadership completely change. Your boss is probably going to change, the vice presidents are going to change, because everything that they want needs to be catered to how much money the venture capital firm is going to pump out. And it's going to be hard. The last 2 years at Securely, I think we had about 55 to 60% turnover inside of our leadership team. That means that half, if not more, of the people that I thought I knew in leadership were gone. Went to other businesses, and I, again, started to feel alone. I got promoted to an account executive position and realized that I only had myself. And it got to a point of how much longer am I going to build someone else's dream? This wasn't my dream to start securely and stop cyberbullying and child suicide. It's great and all, and I love what I do, but I'm building someone else's dream. This wasn't mine. This isn't what I wanted to do. And at the end of the day, anybody that's an employee is in the machine that's working for someone else's dream. And it got to a point last year that I was tired of working for someone else's dream, and I had to start working for mine. So that's when I started my marketing agency and our Amazon drop shipping and got a complete understanding of what it's like to open an LLC, understanding what trusts are, getting an employee identification number, getting a Shopify account, and start investing in myself and what I want to do. Beautiful. Yeah.
So venture capital is tough. So my dad's old company got bought out.
Sure.
Similar situation. I mean, they just wiped their slate
Mm.
clean. And it was probably about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've flunked, and so they had to file bankruptcy. It was a whole bad ordeal. But
Mm.
because of that, my dad, kind of similar to yourself, was like, I'm building something else's dream. Like, I'm gonna step back. I'm gonna go on my own road. And honestly, I mean, very similar to your dad, came from nothing. He moved to Indiana in a trash bag because my grandma worked for NASA when the Challenger exploded and got laid off. Like, he had nothing. And, you know, very similar. That's kind of my why. You know, I've seen him build himself into, like, head of sales and become an entrepreneur himself. And, yeah, I totally sympathize.
Yeah. And I did have a massive benefit of having two parents that were extremely poor that were able to do it. Sure, did they benefit me and give me a better life? Absolutely, and I would think all of you would want that for your future kids. But at the end of the day, your parents, unfortunately, are on a time clock just like you guys. And the most important thing in this life is your time. Don't ever forget that. It's not this tangible money. It's not this house that you want to go get. It is your time and your health. And if you continue to limit that or degrade any sort of value in that, unfortunately, your time is limited on this world. Any other questions? Yeah.
Did you see yourself get into candles, or did this kind of fall into your lap?
No, I did not. So my business partner who I knew, and I was in Delta Tau Delta. I don't know if there's any sorority or fraternity people here, but this was the one good thing about networking with your inner circle is I didn't know if I wanted to join a fraternity. I actually had an unfortunate circumstance where I wanted to join Sigma Chi with some of my best friends. And I had a falling out with them, unfortunately, and I couldn't join them. In some way or the world, I bumped into Ben Seafelt, who was a junior in college, didn't really know much about the Delts and what they had, but pledged and went through it. And Ben had a genius idea to be able to create and disrupt the candle industry. And all he had was himself. I didn't know about it for a while. Didn't even know that there was a prototype being made. No one knew about it. He talked about it during college and had a lot of good sketches and diagrams, but no one helped him. No one was there picking up and going to call the Chinese distributor to understand schematics or understand any sort of logistics, how to get stuff from China over to the United States and understanding all the legality of that. No one was going to do that for him. He had to really get up and do it himself. Myself and Justin here and Ben are really trying to do a really big push to disrupt the candle industry, and it's going to come out very, very soon. And it's just so great to be able to find these opportunities because I could have just not joined Ben. I could have just kept working it securely, not put more time on my schedule and kept enjoying my weekends and keep going to the bar. But it got to a point where I saw it. He had the prototype in his hand. And I don't know about you guys, once you see something of value in front of you, it's not about the picture on the screen or, oh, what ifs, but once someone actually shows you this is what I created, I had to dive all in. Now, mind you, some of you are actually going to be presented with these opportunities, and some of you, unfortunately, are going to turn them down one way or other. Either not think about them again, or don't care at all. And unfortunately, some of those businesses will end up making them millions, and you'll miss out on it. But these are some of the consequences to actions. Now, I had a really good consequence into going in with Ben on this candle disruption industry. And it really just depends on where you want to shift your focus to and what is the best investment for you and where you want to be in the next 5 years. Any more questions? Yep.
Will you still have a job while you're in this venture?
Mm-hmm. So one thing I want to talk about is time for a second. My dad wasted 4.5 years of his life driving 35 years to Beech Grove, Indiana from Indianapolis. 3.5 years of his life he had to drive down there. Total. Now we as a society take about 40% of our life away just in sleeping alone. 40% of your life gone just sleeping. And we just continue to still waste time inside of here. So the biggest thing that I wanted to do inside of remote work is how I could be most effective with my time. My complete drive time is cut out. I'm able to expense everything inside of my workplace because of the way I've leveraged my role inside of the company. I've been able to get my cell phone paid off. But none of these things were even asked or told me during the job application. They weren't telling me that they could buy my office and pay me money for my office. I had to ask for that. They weren't going to pay for my cell phone bill until I showed them how many calls I was doing into outbound prospects. These are some of the things you really want to think about, because the best thing you can do is, if you're working for yourself to build something great, what's great about the United States and free commerce is you could probably get someone else to pay it for you and be just as successful. Anything else?
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned in starting your own business or joining this partnership?
All the unexpected financial turns that you don't think are going to be there. So we're trying to create this prototype and go out through the marks of it. And unfortunately, there's some suppliers that want to charge more. But the question is, are you going to get the schematic or CAD file and go to another supplier and deal with all this? Who knows? Am I making a right decision to completely cut this supplier out and maybe go to someone else? You don't know that until you make the choice. But the biggest lesson I learned is paralysis by analysis, which I'm sure a lot of you do. It's really just sitting there and thinking about your maybes and I don't knows and never making a decision. Most of the time in life, yes or no is probably going to leave you either in a good position or an okay position. Being able to say no to things is a great way to really start thinking about yourself and where you want to go. Stop saying I don't know. Stop saying maybes. You're doing yourself a disservice. You really got to start really just not doing the paralysis by analysis and, should I do this? Should I do this? Just do it. What do you got to lose? You have nothing to lose. You are in school. You're not going to fail. This is a great program you're in. All you got to do is take advantage and just say yes to the opportunities that are in front of you. Stop thinking, just do it. Yeah.
Okay, so I really like the mission securely.
Sure.
I lost 2 parents and one of my best friends and a couple other kids while I was in high school. So internship opportunities. I mean, do you guys have those? It sounds like there's possibly.
So we do internship opportunities. But I want you guys to know, software in general, if you ever want to go into it or get into a tech startup, which it is a very hot field, it is hyper competitive. We're not the Harvard or the Brown universities that have a computer science degree. We're not even the Purdue University engineering kids that got a computer science degree. And I promise you, unfortunately, we are going to get turned down by them. I did several times before I went there just because I didn't have a UNC Chapel Hill degree. I didn't have a New York University degree that they wanted. I had a Ball State University degree. But what else do I have? The question is how many opportunities inside of Ball State are you going to take advantage of? Just like this opportunity where they're going to pay you to create an opportunity, you really got to start understanding that you're not as good as you think you are. Well, I got a degree from Ball State, so they should accept me. But you've done no internships or no jobs in between to be able to make you any sort of attractiveness to these jobs. Everyone wants to work at these startup companies. They pay fantastic. But you know why? It's because everyone inside of there is hyper ambitious. No one's sitting down and just not doing work. And if you do, you'll fall by the wayside and get fired very fast. What you really need to do is really go out and show what you can do. Be confident in these interviews and tell them how much you want to work for their mission is what they want to hear. They don't want to hear how many calls you can make or how you'll show up early or you'll stay late. That's all the same crap that everyone says, is I'll do more than the next guy. Well, what have you done to show me that you'll do more than the next guy? You've done no internships, no previous jobs, but you stayed at home and caddied at your local golf course and got that done. That was a really good job. And that was me in high school when I first wanted to get my first internship at a marketing agency downtown. All they said was, all you have done is you went and caddied at your dad's golf course. And he's right. I didn't have anything. I was stupid. I was a freshman in college thinking that I was able to get this job. Upset. I was telling my dad about it. I was like, I don't know why they wouldn't accept me. And the best thing he ever said was, unfortunately, you've turned down other opportunities because you had it easy. You wanted to just go caddy and make a good amount of money just going to caddy instead of going and doing a small marketing internship. Sure, they're going to pay you $10 an hour. It's not going to be glamorous. You're going to have to work 40 to 45 hours. But it's where that takes you is the beneficial part. And I know it's hard. It's not easy to wake up every day and go to a job. But let me tell you this. Any job that you find or company that you find where you really believe the company or whoever is leading you and you really believe in them and that they could take you to another level, and most of these leaders, like myself, want to elevate your game. We're not just there sitting by the wayside all glamorous saying how much money we make. We want to help the next generation. But most people in this industry and where I'm at don't like to just randomly go out and ask kids that don't want to ask for help. And I'm sure all of you have heard the metaphor before. The horse can get led to water, but you cannot force it to drink. A lot of you have gotten led to water and unfortunately have not drank. And this is your time to do it, is take advantage of these opportunities. Because unfortunately, college goes very fast. I didn't expect to already be almost 4 years out of college and I'm only 27 years old. So it really depends on where you want to go and what you want to do, and really just don't be scared, jump right in. Yeah. Anything else? We do have internship opportunities though. We're looking specifically for sales and marketing reps, but we are specifically looking for kids that have at least one serious internship inside of any software company or any sort of sales opportunity. And what I mean by that is if you go work at Enterprise or someone else, then we can entertain your offer. Why we do that is a vetting process like I just talked about. We don't want someone who is just coming in here that has some recruiting job like I had that just wants to hop in here for a quick gig to be able to make some good money on a software company. The only reason I even got that is because I badgered Drew until he gave me an interview. You have to be on top of these folks. Otherwise, they're just going to go to the next candidate. The Purdue or IU kid's going to send more messages than you will. I promise you that. And if you're not on top of their inbox all the days telling them how much you like what their company is doing, how much you like their current product, and how you would impact their business, either financially or some sort of growth inside their company, they don't care. They've done the same talks as you and I have done. And the CEO had a conversation with me as they've had kids from Ball State, Western Michigan, all these MAC schools try to apply here. And unfortunately, they're just looking for a quick fix. They don't have any sort of experience and they think, oh, I want to get in a sweet software company real quick. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. You really got to show up for yourself, because at the end of the day, all you have is yourself. That's all I got.
Keep asking questions if you don't.
You guys can ask me a question about anything. How about this? How many of you have actively even started to try to do a startup company? Tell me what you've done.
Me?
Yeah.
Right now, so I work in styling. Like, I have a lot of friends that's in photography and all that, so I start photo shoots. But currently, like, I make clothes, and I'm working to start my own clothing company.
That's awesome. Have you tried to see if you can rent out any sort of studio materials to be able to take in high-end photography of those?
What do you mean? Oh, yes, actually.
Okay.
I'm currently doing that right now.
Awesome.
So I work close with the photographer that I work with. Like, we're really good friends. And so I sometimes crochet a dress, and I'm going to do a photo shoot for that.
Impressive. That's awesome. Anyone else? Yes.
My freshman year, I just created an LLC to buy and resell clothes on Grails. Like, it was nothing special, and I probably could have done it just by myself, but I only created the LLC just because I was afraid that the IRS would get mad at me if I didn't, so I just did it that way.
Had to offload all those Nike Dunks, huh? Try to sell them all?
Yeah, it was like, it was, I don't know, it was slow, but I learned a lot from it, and
Sure.
you know, still do it, so
Yeah.
it's simple.
The biggest point in all this is to not be afraid. Sure, starting an apparel company is hard, and it's not going to be easy at first. And it looks so much easier looking at companies. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Vitality or Balance Athletica. That was some of my close friends in high school, Taylor Chamberlain and Steve Dilk, who now have built almost $100 million apparel company out of Colorado. You guys can look them up, Balance Athletica. They're one of the biggest brands currently in an athletic company. And I had a good conversation with Steve, and he said, we had to do something that was not Lululemon. And I'm sure you all have bought them before. I have their pants, and they're fantastic. But the biggest thing about Lululemon is their brand recognition, is their little omega symbol. I don't care about anything else on the brand, but if it has a nice omega symbol, I'll sure buy it. That's all that they've done. And what Steve and Taylor did is just completely take everything that they have and build their own brand and be able to leverage everything that Lululemon does, but sell it at a 50% less markup. And they have done substantially well for themselves. And you know what's great? Is you can just build off someone else's idea. Just because that there is Lululemon or Fabletics doesn't mean that you can't do it better than them. There are so many companies out there that do things so terribly well, just terrible, that you really could come in and just beat their customer service. Well, I don't want to go with Jake's ABC software company because he never gets back to me in 4 days. Perfect. What if I had a response time for you in less than 1 day and make sure I got you an ROI percentage of about 30% more on your return than somebody who doesn't return your call back? Perfect. Do you have any previous clients? Actually, you know what? It doesn't matter because Jake never replies to my messages anyway. Perfect. That's your first customer. There's always somebody out there that has the product that you want to sell and do that's not doing that well, that can't keep up with their customer service or can't even keep up with the bandwidth. And that's where you really got to start finding and where you can shine and what you really like to do. Really, to start out, you really got to find out what you want to do. I used to go to a lot of music festivals between Breakaway and Okeechobee, and I thought, shoot, I want to create my own festival. I could do this. Not realizing it literally costs hundreds of millions of dollars to even create some of these things. I didn't even think about it. So I thought I'd start my own little one in Indiana. Didn't work out that well. But going through the process of understanding how to buy a venue, what's it take to get artists, what is a manager inside of artists? Like, how do they even correlate, or how can I even buy someone to either come here or be able to actually do this? And these are some of the things that people have done at the fraternities I used to go to, is be able to call a manager of an artist and be able to get them here. It's not easy. It's not easy to go out and talk to somebody's recording manager and see if you can get them out for an event. But these are some of the things you want to take advantage of, because all they're going to say is probably no. And even better is, maybe you should call this guy and he could be a better of assistance to you. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate the reference. At the end of the day, you got to want to ask yourself about asking the next question. Because if you don't, no one is going to have any answers for you.
Sounds like finding your passion, like something that you're really passionate about, has been beneficial for you.
Yeah, yeah.
What advice would you give to students who are struggling to figure out what it is that they're passionate about?
Yeah. Try things. Try. Stop giving up on yourself. And what I mean by that is it is uncomfortable. I didn't want to join Move Media, that marketing agency over in the marketing building. I didn't know anyone, and I was nervous. I wasn't able to talk in front of superintendents and students like I can do now. But it's getting uncomfortable with yourself, getting outside the box in your house, getting away from the Xbox. And at the end of the day, it just really comes down to how you want to approach your own life. And that goes to any sort of life skills, is starting to figure out what I want to try. And if you fail, that's okay. Learn to love to fail. Stop getting frustrated about stuff you've done once and then fail at. How many of you fell off your bike your first time you rode on it? Got you. There must be some stellar riders in here with that amount of hands that went up. But I busted my front tooth the first time I rode my bike. I got a nice little filling right here. It's a big little filling. Didn't want to do it at all. I was crying, moaning. Didn't want to ride my bike again. A year later, I hopped back on it and I was able to ride it. That is a metaphor that you can use with anything. Just because you fail and get pushed down once and have a little scrape or a chipped tooth doesn't mean you can't try it again or you're a failure at it. And I wasn't that good at selling either. I used to say my previous company on my sales calls at Securely, and I had our chief sales officer say, if you do that again, I gotta let you go. So I really had to start checking myself and realizing that if this was something I wanted to do with Securely, I had to put 2 feet in.
Any other questions?
Yeah?
Do you ever see that, like, you talk about, like, just building off somebody else's idea?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done it, like, as in, like, kind of seeing a need in a different way?
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess, like, my example was, with my age, I'm a bartender, too, and I love to go to do the bartending stuff, but I hate going to bars in my age. So I was thinking of, like, trying to find or make a lounge kind of for, like, my age group.
Sure.
For those people who want to, like, just go out with the girls and have a cocktail and don't have to deal with, like, the
Absolutely.
bars.
A speakeasy? Sure. Sure. So what's your question?
So I guess my question is, like, is it the same thing to you as in, like, seeing, like, building off people versus seeing a need in this, like, seeing the idea as more like a need for people versus, like,
Sure.
building, I guess? Like,
Sure. And you're absolutely right. There probably needs to be more very nice high-end cocktail bars for people in the ages of 30, 40, and 50, and 60. And unfortunately, there's not. And that's the need you have there. And it doesn't have to be someone else saying, well, wouldn't this be a great idea if someone created this? You thought about the value of understanding that there wasn't enough bars for people your age. And I absolutely get that. And you know what's funny is you're right. I live in Hamilton County, and there's nothing around that that's like that. Every place I go to is 20 and 30-year-olds, unfortunately. And I get it. It really comes down to finding the location you want. Understanding if there's a target audience that would want to go do that. Having a grand opening that presents who it's catered to, and having the ambiance that attracts that crowd. I think it's a great idea. Anything else? Sure.
Okay, so being a male in a sales field or a business field in general, what is the best advice you can give to a female
Mm-hmm.
doing business?
Don't let these men walk over you. Don't. We're nothing better. I promise you. I promise you, like, if we all went to sales, some of you men in here would suck. Like, would probably fumble on your name getting on a sales call. Now, I was the same way, but it really depends on how confident you are in yourself. Sure, we are in a male-dominated industry, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, about over 65 to 70% of executives inside of startup companies are male. It's an unfortunate side effect of being in the United States is we have had a male-dominated industry inside of leadership in companies. Now, what do you do on that side? It goes back to what I said about differentiating yourself, is beating out the top 90%. Unfortunately, in this world, what I've realized is about 70 to 80% of people will unfortunately let down your expectations. And I got that from my CRO, is that people that you hire or people that you bring onto your company will let you down 70% of the time. They won't meet your expectations. They won't send out the email blast that you want them to do. They won't do the calls they're supposed to because, sorry, I was supposed to get to that. But when were you gonna get to it? So now we're on our one-on-one meeting and you didn't have any sort of value in what I told you to do and I'm your direct lead. So it really depends on how much are you gonna show up for yourself. And I think for women especially, and I have a great female leader inside of Securely, is go out and find an amazing female leader. There's a bunch, and I'm more than willing, if you guys ever connect with me, Jacob Timberlake on LinkedIn, I'll send you some of these incredible female leaders that are out there and trying to shine within technology in any sort of startup space. But what they have done is built the brand inside themselves. They went and got certifications. They went and got their masters. They weren't just like, oh, I'm just like the best at what I do because I worked at Enterprise for 3 months in a summer internship and got drunk with my girls on the weekend. Oh, okay, so you're just like the next guy I had in who got drunk at Ball State at the Chug way too much. Got it. So it's how you differentiate yourself. Are you gonna go get the internships? Are you gonna be better than the Jake Timberlake who showed up and had no internships? It's really up to you. And it really depending upon how you want to leverage yourself against the competition. And I don't mean to say that, you all are competing against yourselves. You all are gonna start applying jobs against each other. And unfortunately, some of you might get jobs that others won't get. And that's all dependent upon how you build your own network and your own credibility professionally. Any other questions? Yeah.
How would you kind of make it apparent to the employer that you connect with their mission statement? Would it be about like, tell me about yourself? Or
Yeah.
how would you work that in?
Yeah. Now, what I did, and I know it's a little bit extensive, but if you guys find a job that you really, really like, if you want to go work at Salesforce, you need to dive deep into understanding their sales. What I did, I pitched Securely on my call. I knew all the classroom management and cyberbullying insights of the artificial intelligence. I knew it like a beginning SDR would. And that's what they want to hear, is you've done your background research. They're not going to care about your little marketing internship that you did at a small Jake Timberlake shop in Indiana when you're trying to work for their startup company that already has $100 million worth of Series B funding. They're not. So, what do? You got to find the why within yourself. I can't tell you, I can speak to you till I'm blue in the face, but unfortunately, you really got to find it within yourself. Any other questions? Yeah?
Did you have any big failures that ever set you back?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina after college just because I hated Indiana. Like, for God's sakes, how many more gray days are we gonna have? Like, I personally am planning on moving to Florida here soon just because I need it for myself. And just on a personal level, you all can move. Don't feel tied to Indiana just because, like, oh, I built a small little network here and I have 50 professionals. That's nothing. You should go to Austin, Texas. You should go to San Jose, California, and see how these cities operate. We're in a very, very small town. And at the end of the day, we're not a massive college compared to the IUs, the Purdues, the Kentuckys, the Kansases, the Alabamas, the Georgias. They have some very serious kids there that are getting 4.0s and being Sigma Cum Laude. So, where did I get up from there? So when I was in Charlotte, the biggest failure that I saw was accepting the first job I had. Not doing any vetting. I was with my ex-girlfriend living at her place with 4 other girls in their apartment. Hated it. Thought I was going to have to move back to Charlotte, North Carolina. So what did I do? I really started to just try to find a job. Did as much as I can to recruit for myself, and I didn't understand anything. I was busy selling smart home security systems for Vivint, door-to-door sales out in Wilmington, North Carolina. Now, if I really wanted to make this happen, I had to accept something. Otherwise, I didn't have the financial need to stay in Charlotte. So what I did was I just accepted the first thing I had. And unfortunately, what you guys are going to realize is there's going to be a lot of false promises in the world. A lot of people are going to be deceiving to you, unfortunately. I'm sure a lot of you have tried to apply for jobs that said insurance, and it goes into this big multi-level marketing scheme. You really got to read the fine details and comb through with a fine-tooth comb, because you got to realize what the top earners are making. And at the end of the day, you're not going to be a top earner. They love to say that, well, our top earner's making $250,000. You just got there. That $250,000 that he made was 4 years of hard-ass work. Pardon my French. But keep in mind, we're all average until we make something out of ourselves. I was average too. I was a terrible technical recruiter, and I don't know how I got the job at Securely. But I built value and did a really good sales pitch in front of our recruiter and our sales operations lady, and I got the job. Sure, making $38,000 a year and competing against 50 different recruiting firms to try to get one person on a senior cloud architect role was a pain in my butt. But you know what it got me to know? Of how much I hated recruiting, of how much I hated doing that again. And it goes back to what I was saying. I had to try it. And otherwise, I had to move back to Indiana. And what's worse is I probably wouldn't be here talking to you if I chose to just quit. I can't do this, I'll just quit. I'll just move back to Indiana because it's easier for me. It's an easy out. It's comfortable, smooth. Could have just went back to Indiana. What I did is not go out to bars and just go to the grocery store and work on trying to find a really good startup company inside of Charlotte, because unfortunately, we live in a state where there's not a lot of lucrative opportunities here. Where they are is in Texas, in California, in Florida, on the East Coast. We're in Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, a lot of you will be able to find a little bit of opportunities, but I would highly recommend putting your location and seeing the differences when you put your location to Texas, when you put it in San Jose, California, when you put it on the East Coast, because those are the jobs you're really going to want. Unfortunately, we live in a world right now where not every city is up and coming and fast growing. Indianapolis isn't like that. I've been here and I understand it very well. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of massive startup businesses. That could be a great avenue for some of you to really get something growing and pumping here. And I know a lot of startup companies have already done it. Like Greenlight Guru, who I follow, has hired over 15 to 20 different people from Ball State. And I know all of them are making over $100,000 to $150,000 a year. Just from a startup company needing some kids to work there, but they got in early and now they've grown themselves. But the problem is now if you go apply for Greenlight Guru, they're gonna want 2 years of intern experience. Now, all those kids that got hired there, they didn't need all that experience because they needed workers. So they just got a bunch of ambitious kids like us to go work there. And now because they have their credibility and have become an account executive Greenlight Guru, they can go work at a Salesforce. They can go work at an Oracle and make like $250,000 to $500,000 a year, working 30 hours a week, selling big software deals to Fortune 500 companies. And that's the reality. It really just depends on where you want to go and what you want to do. Just don't stay too comfortable in your comfort zone. Anything else? Yeah?
Do you find that no matter what you do, you're selling?
Mm-hmm. Goes back to the personal brand. You guys should really start crafting your elevator pitch on yourself, because you are going to run into very serious leaders and entrepreneurs that are going to want your attention, that are going to want to see what you're doing. And this goes back to the missed opportunities. If you choose to not prepare and choose to not have any sort of insight into business knowledge or financial understanding of how to start an LLC or how you want to create your business in general or company, they're going to just shoot you out the door. Well, what have you done to invest in how you have built an LLC? Are you already expensing stuff? And if you don't have those answers, unfortunately, they're not going to want to take the time of day because you decided to not take the time of day. It's not because of them and they're just brushing you off and thinking, oh, this guy's just an a-hole that doesn't want to speak to me. You've done nothing for them to get your attention. They have worked years to get to where they are. And some of these kids love to come up and be like, oh, I have this great idea, and just blurt it out to them and have no sort of understanding on a strategic plan of how I'm going to get there. And that's where you want to see, is how do I build myself and how do I have an elevator pitch every day that says, I'm awesome, I'm great, and I'm going to go kill it today. Stop looking in the mirror and thinking that you're terrible. You're not. You are beautiful, smart kids. You're at Ball State. I used to go to Ivy Tech for my first year before I came to Ball State. That's how big I thought I was going to fail. And now I'm here, being able to speak to you guys, and it's been amazing. You guys have anything else? Beautiful. Thank you all. I appreciate it.